Good morning again. All right, we are going to get started with our reading today. Our objectives of today's lesson is we're going to be reading part of the text. We're not going to read the whole thing because it is quite lengthy, but we're going to read part of the text and we're going to take some notes on those key details that we're reading. So first of all, we need to understand, well, which ones are the key details? So we're going to underline or highlight in our text digitally to kind of make sure that we understand which ones are important or worth noting. And then we're going to actually take notes. I'm going to take notes digitally so that you guys can see what I might write down, but you can also do it whatever works for you, like whatever strategy works for you. If you want to do it digitally as well, good morning, Emily. You can do it digitally. If you would rather write on a piece of paper like we're usually doing in the classroom, you can write your notes on a piece of paper. Up to you. All right, good morning, Juan. All right, so I'm going to get started. I figured out how to turn my desktop screen on, but my face off. Good morning, Michael, again. So you won't see my face right now, but you will hear my voice, hopefully. Let's see. Make sure I click on the right one because I needed you to see my full desktop. Perfect, it worked. Okay, so I have my notes on one side of the screen and I have benchmark on the other because this text that we're going to be using, we did not have a chance to get the actual textbook. So for this learning this week and next week, we're going to need to make sure we know how to get to our book digitally. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure we all know how to do that. So once I go into Clever and Benchmark, then I'm going to hit Benchmark, Grade 5, and we are on Unit 8. Then that will filter out the ones we don't need. And I have more on here than you have, but then you're going to find the book. It's called Water, Fact, and Fiction. There it is. And we're only using one text from this. So we are going to, if you're going to do any digital notes in the text, you can save it here. So I'm going to actually say yes this time, just to save any annotations that I do. So if I underline or highlight, it'll save that. If I write anything in the margins, it will save that. Now I'm going to come down to the bottom because we need to go all the way towards the end of this text. Let me see, I think a bit more. And more. There's a lot of other great text in here, so if you wanted to read that on your own, that's totally fine. There we go. Page 22 is where it starts. Now this text is quite lengthy, so today we're only going to read part of it. We're reading these 2 pages here. And then I believe we're starting on this section too. I'm going to double check our page numbers. But then the next day we will read the rest of it, which is another set of pages there. And that would be the end. So today will be starting with this one. Let me check really quick our page numbers. 22 to 25. Okay, just wanted to make sure I was telling you the same thing. All right, 22 to 25. So that means that there's 23, 24, 25. So I think it would make sense that we start 25, but it continues on 26. I might even go all the way to 26. That makes sense to me. All right, the way that this text is set up, it is set up like a question answer. So there's question at the top, and then there's some details underneath it that shares like the answer to it. And then there's the question number 2, and then there's the answer, which is in the text. So it's not going to say the exact, like it's not going to be right there, like here is the answer. There will be some inferring that you'll need to do with some of the information you're getting. And so it's set up that way, but I'm also seeing a text structure that's kind of like a cause and effect. There's a lot of cause and effect, especially starting with question 2 and 3, that we're learning about what happens because of the pollution or what happens because of the warm waters. And so as we read, I'm going to kind of notice that too. All right, so I've got all my stuff. When you are getting ready to do this too, you're going to want to make sure you have everything ready, your text open digitally, and then your notes in whatever format you're planning to do. If you know how to split your screen like this, you can do them digitally both of them. Or like me, I'm going to have like my piece of paper out, so I'm going to actually be writing it out, my notes. All right, so it's called Questions and Answers About Oceans. Morning, Brian. And there is italicized words in the beginning. That usually means it's a little hint we need to know in the beginning there too. There's a little thing that says a Climate Kids article. Oceans, those vast bodies of salt salty water that cover most of our planet help make Earth unique in our solar system. Oceans have played an important role in physically shaping all aspects of Earth. This article about the oceans was produced by the Earth Science Communication team at NASA for the Climate Kids website. It explores some of the frequently asked questions about oceans. And yesterday, we actually got to ask our own questions too. So I have a list of those questions that we had. So the first question is, why is the ocean important? And my notes are set up just like if I was going to do research, where I have my source and my details. What I'm going to do is model for you how we could take notes, because next week we're going to be doing some research, and it would look like this: source and details. So my source, I'm just going to abbreviate this and say Q&A about oceans. And I'm going to now say the page number as I go. I'm also going to put this in quotation marks because it is an article. And I'm going to focus on page 22 in this source. All right, and I'm going to get my details ready. Why is the ocean important? And on my text, let's see, there is a highlighter that I'm going to use as we go. After all, we live on land, but our world is a water world, and the ocean covers 70% of Earth's surface. That sounds important. The Earth covers 70% of Earth's surface. The average depth, which means how deep it is 2.7 or 2 7/10 of a mile. That's pretty far. In some places, the ocean is deeper than the tallest mountains are high. The ocean contains about 97% of all the water on Earth. And that sounds familiar. We've talked about that in our science class as well. The ocean plays a starting role in whatever happens with the environment. One big part of its role is to soak up energy. So its job is to soak up energy or heat and distribute it more evenly around the Earth. That sounds important as well. Another part is to soak up carbon dioxide or CO2. So it absorbs a lot, which, just so you know, I had no idea until I read that. Now let's take some notes on what we just highlighted. We don't necessarily have to take everything, but if everything we highlighted was important, then we might. So my first thing that I highlighted was oceans cover 70% of Earth's surface. I'm going to just write that out. Oceans cover 70% of Earth's surface. And that means that if I looked at a globe, 70% of it is ocean and the other 30% is the land. Okay? The average depth of the ocean is 2.7 or 2 7/10 of a mile. So I'm going to just abbreviate that. I don't have to write that whole sentence. I can just write depth equals 2 7/10 of a mile. That's the average. I'm going to put AVG for average, which means that's not at the deepest spot. That's just in general how deep it is. Okay, the other thing I underlined or highlighted was that 97% of all water on Earth is in the ocean. So 97% of water is, I'm going to also add in, is salty, because that was the detail that we learned in our science class. And I'm going to put in here, I'm sorry, Tango's just noisy today. I'm going to put in there ocean, because the ocean is where we're talking about according to the text. But we also know that that means that 97% of the water is salty on Earth. The other 3% is the fresh water, so lakes and rivers and, lakes, rivers, glaciers, and groundwater. Okay? Let me just check our comments to make sure we're doing this okay. All right. And then I have a few more details here. One of the biggest roles, so I'm going to write a big role, is to soak, oh my goodness, what's happening there? Is to soak up energy. And you might be wondering, what does that mean, or how does that happen? And that's going to be answered in the following few pages. And so one of those ways it soaks up energy, and distribute. And distribute, which means spread out. Distribute it evenly, I think that's important, evenly around Earth. Whoops, typo. Okay. And it also soaks up CO2. CO2 is carbon dioxide, and that is what we breathe out. So if I finish up my note there. So CO2 is what we breathe out. When we breathe in oxygen. We breathe out carbon dioxide. Some other things that just might help you understand about CO2. We've talked about H2O before. And what that means is this is what water is. This is just extra information for you. CO2 is carbon dioxide. And just plain old O would be oxygen. I'm going to Google that. I want to make sure I gave you the right information. But if I'm just talking about oxygen, let me make sure I give you the right information. I think it's just plain O, but I want to make sure. I think it's just O. But I will double check that to make sure I'm giving you accurate information. When I'm looking at a periodic table, it's not something that we talked too much about in 5th grade, but all of the elements on the periodic table have letters attached to them. So one of them would be O, which is oxygen. Another one would be C for carbon, and then H is hydrogen. So water is made up of 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. Carbon dioxide is 1 carbon, 2 oxygens. And I'm just trying to make sure the oxygen is just plain old O. It might be O2. Well, I'm trying to find it, but I don't see anything that's helpful. Okay, so these are our notes for just this one page. So now if I was going to go, I'm going to save this. How can I save? If I was going to move on to question number 2 on the source side, where did it go? On the source side, I would just go ahead and put on question number 2, or even write out the question. Sorry, I'm trying to find the one I just did. Disappeared on me. Oh well. Okay. My question and answer side, I would put, or my source and details side. My source, I would just change the page number, and I would write 23, and then write the details on the other side. Okay. Let me go back to our regular screen. All right, and let me check for any questions. Okay, let me go back actually to my screen because I wanted to show you one thing I noticed on Damien's Chromebook. If you're having trouble finding the book, so if I were to go into Benchmark, there may be a thing that you need to change up here. So on Damien's computer, I noticed that it was not selected for Benchmark Advance. It was selected as ebooks, I think. So you won't see the grade unless you put Benchmark Advance. Then you can click grade 5. Then you can click unit 8. So that might be the issue, Emily, so you might want to double check that. And your notes, you know what? I think I do know where the notes went. So I want to bring that back up. Yes. Found it. Okay. Source and details. So then your next one, this is what I was trying to do, but I couldn't do it before. Your next one, because I've already kind of done this one for you, is you might draw a line. You don't have to, but you can. And then you'll write the next one, your on source side, page 23. And then you would write down your details as you read for that one too. Does that help? Oh, and in Google Classroom, there is a question that uses the text after you've read it. So some of you guys did respond, some of you started to respond, and I just sent it back because I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that I'm expecting text evidence to be in your answer, and a complete answer, complete sentences. I had a lot of responses with no periods, which drove me nuts, so I sent them all back. So please use text evidence as you respond to that one question in classroom. Okay. All right, guys. If there is anything else you need, please make sure you use our Flipgrid for questions. And another way too would be Google Classroom. So if you needed to just ask me a question, you can also type it out if you would feel more comfortable doing that. All right. So I will go ahead and let you guys get started. I've started to look at your math. Well done. I'm really impressed. Most people are getting that right. I will point out really quick, I saw some reversals. I wrote a list of people, but I saw some reversals on a few people's ticket out the door for math. So some of you guys are still needing to practice. You go horizontal first, then vertical. Okay? We'll talk more about that tomorrow during Zoom too, but all right. Have a great day, and let me know if you need any more support. Bye.